Hang on. No, I'm going to hit stop record because I'm really annoyed by this situation. And this isn't how we're going to start our week. This is a darn shame. Hang on a second, guys.
You don't want us to look? I have to check this email in 2 years, and she has over 15,000. What?
Okay, sorry to keep everybody waiting. Now we will go ahead and get started. All right, number the stars. Some of you read the back of the book and you noticed that it says something about the Nazis. And that word should be really familiar to us because it's World War II. Okay? Now.
Who's Miss Cowgies?
She's a different teacher from somewhere else. Okay. Now, so it's no coincidence that we're reading this novel right now. We planned that as a 5th grade team, that we would read a historical fiction book during the time we're actually studying World War II. Josie, yes, ma'am, your hand is raised.
Well, hold on. I forgot my question, but I have something else to add now. So, I wanted to say this book will be really easy for me to understand, I feel like, because I like, in my writing, whenever I go to ECP, we have like the writing club, and I normally write lots of stories that are historical fiction. So, I have a feeling that I might really like this book.
I will say that this is the first book this year that I haven't already read it. So I'll be reading it and discovering it for the first time along with you guys. Okay? So I can't tell you nothing about it other than that it's historical fiction, World War II. That's all I got. I haven't even read the back. I haven't even read the back cover yet, so some of you are ahead of me. Now, but I want to ask, tell me about, and Josie said it, she loves she loves historical fiction. Jason and Zeke, no. Tell me about historical fiction. What do you know about historical fiction? Tell me about that genre of book. Zeke.
Like this book right here, it's called War Stories. It's about World War II, and like back then, it's not a real person, but he was in World War II and he's fighting in it. It's like back in history, like a big event or anytime recent, like before now. It's like World War II or World War I. It's like for example, I survived, like it's not a real person, but they're back in that time.
Okay. So Zeke used his book he's reading right now called War Stories, the I Survived book. I know, like the Magic Treehouse series. I wouldn't call that historical fiction. That's like fantasy. But a lot of times they travel back, and the setting happens in a time and an event that was real. World War II really happened. There are going to be a lot of things, I'm assuming, in this story about World War II that are going to be pretty accurate, but the actual characters are not real. They are made up. Okay, so that's historical fiction. We've got made up characters, but they're in a real time period, real setting. Okay,
they don't know that. They don't know every single.
They're based. But we do know a lot about World War II because we were really good at record keeping and things at that point. We had news. We didn't have social media, but we had newspapers. Okay,
Yeah.
we had a way to easily record facts and history at this point in time. Okay, all right, so let's read the very back of the book. 10-year-old Anne-Marie Johansson. Right, people are still alive that were alive back then, Sean. Okay, Anne-Marie Johansson.
It's Annie Mary.
Anne-Marie.
It's Anne-Marie.
Anne, A-N-N-E is Anne. Anne-Marie Johansson. The J is usually silent in this name. And her best friend, Ellen Rosen, often think about life before the war. But it's now 1943, and their life in Copenhagen is filled with school, food shortages, and the Nazi soldiers marching in their town. The Nazis won't stop. The Jews of Denmark are being relocated. So Ellen moves in with the Johanssons and pretends to be part of the family. Then Anne-Marie is asked to go on a dangerous mission. Somehow she must find the strength and courage to save her best friend's life. There's no turning back now. This sounds pretty exciting.
Born in 1953.
All right, there is the outline of a horse on the back of our book. All right. So we're going to dig right in today with chapter 1. Okay. It is. All right, here we go. Chapter 1. And these, I think this is the first book all year that the chapters actually have titles. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Why are you running? I'll race you to the corner, Ellen. Anne-Marie adjusted the thick leather pack on her back so that her school books balanced evenly. Ready? She looked at her best friend. Ellen made a face. No, she said, laughing. You know I can't beat you. My legs aren't as long. Can't we just walk like civilized people? She was a stocky 10-year-old, unlike lanky Anne-Marie. What is lanky?
Like lanky, you know.
Fiona.
Skinny, like kind of like, but she doesn't know.
Like this.
Whoa. Tall and skinny. Fiona said like a noodle. Somebody said like Fiona. Somebody said. Okay. Lanky is very tall and very thin. What in contrast, Ellen is stocky. What does stocky mean?
Short.
DJ.
A bit like shorter and like her legs aren't.
Okay, maybe a little bit shorter. I don't know if I'd go as far to say chubby, but big bone. Big bone. Okay? Little stockier. Not quite. I don't think anybody's going to call them thin. Okay?
A husky.
Husky. There you go. All right. We have to practice for the athletic meet on Friday. I know I'm going to win the girls' race this week. I was second last week, but I've been practicing every day. Come on, Ellen, Anne-Marie pleaded, eyeing the distance to the next corner of the Copenhagen street. Please. Ellen hesitated, then nodded and shifted her own rucksack of books against her shoulder. Oh, all right, ready, she said. Go, shouted Anne-Marie, and the two girls were off, racing along the residential sidewalk. Anne-Marie's silvery blonde hair flew behind her, and Ellen's dark pigtails bounced against her shoulders. Wait for me, wailed little Kirsty, left behind, but the older two girls weren't listening. Anne-Marie outdistanced her friend quickly, even though one of her shoes came untied, and she sped along the street called Oosterbrogade, past the small shops and cafes of her neighborhood here in northeast Copenhagen. Laughing, she skirted an elderly lady in black who carried a shopping bag made of string. A young woman pushing a baby in a carriage moved aside to make way. The corner was just ahead. Anne-Marie looked up, panting, just as she reached the corner. Her laughter stopped. Her heart seemed to skip a beat. Halt! A soldier ordered in a stern voice. The German word was as familiar as it was frightening. Anne-Marie had heard it often enough before, but it had never been directed at her until now. Behind her, Ellen also slowed and stopped. Far back, little Kirsty was plodding along, her face in a pout because the girls hadn't waited for her. Anne-Marie stared up. There were two of them. That meant two helmets, two sets of cold eyes glaring at her, and four tall, shiny boots planted firmly on the sidewalk, blocking her path to home. And it meant two rifles, gripped in the hands of the soldiers. She stared at the rifles first, then finally she looked into the face of the soldier who had ordered her to halt. Why are you running? The harsh voice asked. His Danish was very poor. 3 years, Anne-Marie thought with contempt. 3 years they've been in our country, and they still can't speak our language. I was racing with my friends, she answered politely. We have races at school every Friday, and I want to do well, so I... Her voice trailed away, the sentence unfinished. Don't talk so much, she told herself. Just answer them, that's all. She glanced back. Ellen was motionless on the sidewalk a few yards behind her. Farther back, Kirsty was still sulking and walking slowly toward the corner. Nearby, a woman had come to the doorway of a shop and was standing silently watching. One of the soldiers, the taller one, moved toward her. Anne-Marie recognized him as the one she and Ellen always called, in whispers, the giraffe, because of his height and the long neck that extended from his stiff collar. He and his partner were always on this corner. He prodded the corner of her backpack with the stock of his rifle. Anne-Marie trembled. What's in here? He asked loudly. From the corner of her eye, she saw the shopkeeper move quietly back into the shadows of the doorway out of sight. School books? She answered truthfully. Are you a good student? The soldier asked. He seemed to be sneering. Yes. What's your name? Anne-Marie Johansson. Your friend, is she a good student too? He was looking beyond her at Ellen, who hadn't moved. Anne-Marie looked back too and saw that Ellen's face, usually rosy cheeked, was pale, and her dark eyes were wide. She nodded at the soldier. Better than me, she said. What is her name? Ellen. And who is this? He asked, looking to Anne-Marie's side. Kirsty had appeared there suddenly, scowling at everyone. My little sister. She reached down for Kirsty's hand, but Kirsty, always stubborn, refused it and put her hands on her hips defiantly. The soldier reached down and stroked her little sister's short, tangled curls. Stand still, Kirsty, Anne-Marie ordered silently, praying that somehow the obstinate 5-year-old would receive the message. But Kirsty reached up and pushed the soldier's hand away. Don't, she said loudly. Both soldiers began to laugh. They spoke to each other in rapid German that Anne-Marie couldn't understand. She is pretty, like my own little girl, the tall one said in a more pleasant voice. Anne-Marie tried to smile politely. Go home, all of you. Go study your school books, and don't run. You look like hoodlums when you run. The two soldiers turned away. Quickly, Anne-Marie reached down again and grabbed her sister's hand before Kirsty could resist. Hurrying the little girl along, she rounded the corner. In a moment, Ellen was beside her. They walked quickly, not speaking, and Kirsty between them, toward the large apartment building where both families lived. When they were almost home, Ellen whispered suddenly, I was so scared. Me too, Anne-Marie whispered back. As they turned to enter their building, both girls looked straight ahead toward the door. They did it purposely so that they would not catch the eyes or attention of two more soldiers who stood with their guns on this corner as well. Kirsty scurried ahead of them through the door, chattering about the picture she was bringing home from kindergarten to show Mama. For Kirsty, the soldiers were simply part of the landscape, something that had always been there on every corner, as unimportant as lampposts throughout her remembered life. Why is Kirsty not afraid of the soldiers? Why does she say they're just a part of life, Parker?
They've been around for 3 years and she's only 5. And so that means she was 2. And right. So she didn't have much memory.
Right. She's so little still, like as far back as she can actually remember, the soldiers have always been around. Like Parker said, she's 5. The soldiers have been around, they said, for 3 years. So do you guys remember your first 1-2 years? I don't. Nobody usually does. Maybe if you do, you remember like a little sliver of something here and there, but not usually like long and good. There you go. Zeke was in a tent in Florida eating watermelon. Happy memories. All right.
I was in a tent, and then for some random reason, I got sick and puked in a bucket.
Okay. And DJ was sick and puked in a bucket. Fantastic. Okay. Continuing on. Are you going to tell your mother, Ellen asked Anne-Marie as they trudged together up the stairs. I'm not. My mother would be upset. No, I won't either. Mama would probably scold me for running on the street. She said goodbye to Ellen on the second floor where Ellen lived, then continued on to the third, practicing in her mind a cheerful greeting for her mother. A smile, a description of today's spelling test in which she had done well. But she was too late. Kirsty had gotten there first, and he poked Anne-Marie's book bag with his gun, and then he grabbed my hair. Kirsty was chattering as she took off her sweater in the center of the apartment living room. But I wasn't scared. Anne-Marie wasn't, Ellen too, but not me. Miss Johansson rose quickly from the chair by the window where she'd been sitting. Mrs. Rosen, Ellen's mother, was there too, in the opposite chair. They'd been having coffee together, as they did many afternoons. Of course, it wasn't really coffee, though the mother still called it that, having coffee. There had been no real coffee in Copenhagen since the beginning of the Nazi occupation. Nazi occupation means that they're like there, like they're living there. The soldiers have taken over. They're posted on every corner. Do what?
Do they take all their coffee so they can stay up all night?
Remember now, this is also like there are food shortages there. This is kind of like the tail end of the Depression. Okay, so there's coffee shortages. So it's not that the soldiers took the coffee away. It's just that there's not a lot of anything to go around.
I think they used too much coffee. Why did it say when the soldiers came in?
Well, let's keep reading. Because that was when the war started, and so they were probably, the soldiers didn't take their coffee away, but they're probably preventing like shipments from coming in, like new shipments from coming in.
Yeah, because there could be like spies on it.
Right, exactly. As part of the war, they're probably like going through all of the shipments from other countries and stuff, all of the trade, and they're not letting a bunch of stuff come in the country because they're wanting to control. Because Germany wants to control. Now, remember, they want power and land, so Germany's trying to control everything, even stuff that doesn't make sense for them to control. Who cares if somebody has a cup of coffee? Apparently, Germany cares if somebody has a cup of coffee. Like,
It's just a cup of coffee. Dude, it grows on a tree.
Coffee beans. Okay, here we go. No naval block. Right, so we're in Denmark. Let's look at a map real quick and see where Denmark is.
It's in United
What are you wondering? That Denmark is not. It is Europe. Hang on. Kane, why are you not at your desk wandering around?
He likes to talk to me. That's a surprise.
All right, Denmark is directly above Germany. Let me hit project for you guys. Present. Oops, cancel. Okay, look over at this picture here. So here's Germany.
It doesn't say I'm presenting.
Down below.
Germany's small.
It doesn't say I'm presenting. Sorry. Okay, here is Germany down below. So we know the rest of Europe is down off the bottom of this picture where we can't see. And Denmark is sticking up here. And they are in Copenhagen, which is the capital city of Denmark. And it looks like that is this island part over here. So all of this yellow is Denmark.
Are they friendly now?
Yes, all of these countries are friendly now. Denmark was friendly then. But Germany, if you remember, they're the bad guys once again. They're just trying to take over everybody and everything. And this is the country directly to the north of them. So when they say the Nazi occupation, that's when the Nazi soldiers just showed up and they were just there trying to like take over. So again, they're preventing any shipments from coming in. Jason remembered the term naval blockade. So like they could Germany could stick their ships out here and block any ships from coming in and bringing them supplies or anything. So Germany is in control of Denmark right now. Basically, they are on every street corner. They are allowing people to go to work and school and come straight home. Work and school, come straight home. They're not even allowed to run and play, as you can see.
That's just harsh.
It is harsh. This is what it was like. So this is giving you a little picture of what it was like to be a kid your age during World War II right now over there. Okay. Okay, there had been no real coffee in Copenhagen since the beginning of the Nazi occupation. Not even any real tea. The mother sipped hot water flavored with herbs. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I want to know is, like, I saw on the map Zealand. Is that where the name New Zealand came from?
Zealand? Maybe. Because New Zealand is actually north. No, New Zealand is way over by Australia. It's over by Australia. I have no idea, Josie. That's a good question, though. We'll have to do some research on that later.
Is New Zealand part of the Oceanic region?
Yes. Lily.
Yes, is there a movie for this?
Yes, there's a movie for this. All right, here we go. They were not even sipping real tea. They were sipping hot water flavored with herbs.
That sounds disgusting.
That does sound disgusting to me, too. All right, guys, listen up. Okay. Anne-Marie, what happened? What is Kirsty talking about? Her mother asked anxiously. Where's Ellen? Mrs. Rosen had a frightened look. Ellen's in your apartment. She didn't realize you were here, Anne-Marie explained. Don't worry, it wasn't anything. It was the two soldiers who stand on the corner of Ulster Brigade. You've seen them. You know the tall one with the long neck, the one who looks like a silly giraffe? She told her mother and Mrs. Rosen of the incident, trying to make it sound humorous and unimportant, but their uneasy looks didn't change. I slapped his hand and shouted at him, Kirsty announced importantly. No, she didn't, Mama, Anne-Marie reassured her. She's exaggerating, as she always does. Miss Johansson moved to the window and looked down the street below. The Copenhagen neighborhood was quiet. It looked the same as always, people coming and going from the shops, children at play, the soldiers on the corner. She spoke in a low voice to Ellen's mother. They must be edgy because of... What?
I thought the children couldn't play.
Apparently they are. I was under the impression they couldn't. She spoke in a low voice to Ellen's mother. They must be edgy because of the latest resistance incidents. Did you read in Die Freie Dansk about the bombings in Hilderode and Nuremberg? Although she pretended to be absorbed in unpacking her school books, Anne-Marie listened, and she knew that her mother was what her mother was referring to. The Freie Dansk, the Free Danes, was an illegal newspaper. Danes is a word for the people of Denmark. So the people of Denmark are called Danes. Okay. So the Free Danes, it was an illegal newspaper. Oops. They probably did. Peter Nielsen brought it to them occasionally, carefully folded and hidden among ordinary books and papers. And Mama always burned it after she and Papa had read it. But Anne-Marie heard Mama and Papa talk, sometimes at night, about the news they received that way. News of sabotage against the Nazis, bombs hidden and exploded in the factories that produced war materials, and industrial railroad lines damaged so that the goods couldn't be transported. Zeke.
Miss Bev, I read about a book about World War II, and it was talking about the resistance. There were like a group of people, and they were like people that were against the war and some Jews and stuff, and they attacked like some of the German trains that brought in like fireworks.
Yes. So this is a part of this historical fiction that is accurate. So they said it was about the resistance. The resistance are the Danish people from Denmark, Jason, enough. The Danish people from Denmark that are fighting against the Germans are the resistance. Now, they're not part of an official Denmark army, They are kind of doing it like sneaky on the down low. They're sneaking into places and bombing places. They're tearing up the trains so that the Germans can't get their equipment. But they're kind of doing it like sneaky, trying to sabotage the Germans instead of just like all out fighting them in a war type effort. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's the resistance. Z.
When I was reading a book too, they have like the resistance had like spies, like shopkeepers to like record what the Germans were like, the soldiers were like, and they spied on them and heard what they were talking about. So like the shopkeepers and the teachers.
Okay, so yeah, some of the shopkeepers kind of like played two sides. They were a part of the resistance, but the soldiers didn't know about it. So that way they could listen in on things that they overheard people saying in their shops and report back to the people fighting in the resistance. But they themselves weren't fighting. They were kind of like the spies, if that makes sense. They were listening for all of the information while they were in their shops, reporting back to the people that were part of the resistance fighting. But they themselves were just trying to run their shops and pretend like they were just being good and following German orders.
So the spy.
Yeah, kind of. All right. But Anne-Marie, okay, they already burned the paper. Anne-Marie heard Mama and Papa talk, sometimes at night. Sabotage against the Nazis, bombs hidden, exploded in factories that produced war materials, and industrial railroad lines damaged so that the goods couldn't be transported. And she knew what resistance meant. Papa had explained when she overheard the word and asked. The resistance fighters were Danish people, no one knew who because they were very secret, who were determined to bring harm to the Nazis however they could. They damaged the German trucks and cars and bombed their factories. They were very brave, but sometimes they were caught and killed. I must go and speak to Ellen, Mrs. Rosen said, moving toward the door. You girls walk a different way to school tomorrow. Promise me, Anne-Marie, and Ellen will promise too. We will, Mrs. Rosen, but why does it matter? There are German soldiers on every corner. They will remember your faces, Mrs. Rosen said, turning in the doorway to the hall. It is important to be one of the crowd, always. Be one of many. Be sure that they never have reason to remember your face. She disappeared into the hall and closed the door behind her. He'll remember my face, Mama, Kirsty announced happily, because he said I looked like his little girl. He said I was pretty. If he has such a pretty little girl, why doesn't he go back to her like a good father? Mrs. Johansson murmured, stroking Kirsty's cheek. Why doesn't he go back to his own country? Mama, is there anything to eat? Anne-Marie asked, hoping to take her mother's mind away from the soldiers. Take some bread and give a piece to your sister. With butter? Kirsty asked hopefully. No butter, her mother replied. You know that. Kirsty sighed as Anne-Marie went to the bread box in the kitchen. I wish I could have a cupcake, she said. A big yellow cupcake with pink frosting. Her mother laughed. For a little girl, you have a long memory, she told Kirsty. There hasn't been any butter or sugar for cupcakes for a long time. A year at least. When will there be cupcakes again? When the war ends, Mrs. Johansson said. She glanced through the window down to the street corner where the soldiers stood, their faces impassive beneath the metal helmets. When the soldiers leave.
That was a short chapter.
Yeah. All right. So, yes, Joe. Okay, hang on. Guys, just because I stopped reading did not give you permission to start like chatting with your neighbors. Get back in the groove. Josie, yes, ma'am. I see your hand raised.
I want to know, are we still doing reading rewards? Because I haven't put it in since our last school day.
No. Hang on. No, you don't have to do reading rewards. In fact, I don't even know if it will let you log in right now. Because it told me on my end it expired. The free trial or whatever. Yeah. And so no, we're done with reading rewards. The trial ended. Which is a bummer. But yeah, and I'm not paying for it at this point. Now, hang on just a second. I want to check something. I'm sorry, why are we all talking and fussing? I didn't know either. Okay, hang on. I gotta check something. Okay, So we've got a couple things that we're going to be doing today. Yep. You have questions and vocabulary on one page. On the back, there is a KWL chart. What do I know? What do I want to know? And what have I learned already about the Holocaust, okay, and World War II? So you got a full half hour pretty much. So we're going to do all of this. You also have a map. We looked briefly at
Chapter 1.
Denmark and where Denmark was on the map. But you are going to use this and you are going to color in these countries, whatever color it says at the top. So Denmark, you'll color red. Sweden, you'll color yellow. You will have to pull up a map of World War II Europe on your Chromebook. I will also try and project one because I know many of you have dead Chromebooks. Europe map, World War II.
Mine's like 1%.
Okay. Okay. Yes, pass out this. Jason's coming around with your questions. I will come around with your maps. What is this dude down here? Can he go away? Go away.
Pass out the maps for you.
Yeah. Now, yes, Josie.
So I know there was a March Madness thing, and also I know that Cameron won. So are we going to do that for like the reading rewards?
It won't let me get on reading rewards, so I can't do anything on reading rewards now.
Oh, bye.
Bye.